we both love Mahomes. We know he's, refreshing, honest, humble, hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed,
right?
That's the key. Hasn't changed.
And you're totally right about that. I thought about you when I was doing the interview. And just there, he embraces the moment. And I think that's what I really love about him. He didn't give me some, stupid, close to the vest type of answer just to kind of answer my question. It was thought out. He gave me his honest feeling, right? And that's where I think he's really cool, where I don't know if all quarterbacks and people in his position would do that.
I think that what happens is, and it's unavoidable, it's human nature. We've seen it with other great quarterbacks, other great athletes. You get to the point where the praise, the money, the fame, the attention, the opportunities, it just creates, I don't want to say a monster, but you morph into something other than what you were. It's unavoidable. When you are constantly hearing it, when you are constantly having money thrown at you for nothing. We were talking before the show that Delta has hired Tom Brady in retirement to be a strategic advisor. What the hell does Tom Brady know about planes? I'm a loyal Delta customer. I got to rethink this now. If you're going to hire people to be strategic advisors who don't fly planes, I have one objective: plane stays in the air. I don't care about all this other stuff. I mean, it just sounds like a glorified sponsorship, but that's the kind of opportunity you get.
Right.
And they just keep throwing money at you. Hey, we're going to give you a bunch of money. Just come here and talk and just read off a bunch of cliches, and and it just builds into
plays to the ego.
Somebody who changes.
Yeah.
And you know who's going through that transformation on his team? Travis Kelce's going through that.
Sure.
Travis Kelce's becoming Hollywood. One commercial at a time, one SNL at a time. He's changing into a different guy, and it's unavoidable. It's not pejorative. It happens. When you have your hand in that flame, eventually the flesh changes, and you change. And this is all a testament to Patrick Mahomes. He's still the same kind of dorky guy that just has incredible physical skills. He doesn't take it too seriously, but he does take it very seriously. He doesn't take himself seriously, but he takes his work seriously. And that is hard to maintain, that duality.
Yeah, I agreed. I think that's well said. He's got to, first off, for what you said, it is hard. For any quarterback, whoever, to your point, when anybody is, hey, you're the best, you're the greatest, here, this a boatload of money to do this, and, you do things, you can be late things, whatever, and nobody cares, it placates to the ego and narcissism and all that. And I think we'd all be guilty of that to a degree if we were in some of these guys' shoes. I hear you there. But, yeah, I think he's shown, and honestly, I don't know, maybe it's a new age quarterback, the young quarterbacks in general. They all seem to have a little bit better of a balance of feeling this out. But Mahomes, top notch. And to what you said too, he's a cool nerd. He's a sports nerd. That's where he is. He wants to play sports. He wants to watch some sports. He wants to talk about some sports. And then if he's got a little time off, he wants to drink a beer or do something like that. And I think we can all relate to that. And that's where, he stayed true to himself.
Yeah. And I don't see it changing. If it hasn't changed by now.
No.
2 Super Bowls in.
Right.
5 straight AFC Championship games at home.
Right.
Biggest star in the sport. You're right. Everybody wants to talk to him. Everybody wants a piece of him. He's still the kid that he was when he entered the NFL back in 2017, and I think it's very refreshing. And who knows, it'll be tested because the star is only going to continue to rise. He's not going anywhere. He's only going to get better. That's one thing he said during training camp. He craves the knowledge that a Tom Brady has from experience, where you walk to the line of scrimmage, you know what's going to happen, and you can distribute the football without having to run around with your hair on fire.
Right.
Because at some point he's not going to be able to do that.
Sure.
He's not going to be able to make chicken salad out of you-know-what.
Yeah.
And he wants to just be able to say, okay, I see the defense. All right, I know the play. My second guy's the one who's going to be open right at the snap. Ball out. And I don't have to worry about getting hit. I don't have to worry about running around. I can do this until I'm 50.
Yeah.
Because my arm's still going to be there.
Agreed. I mean, everybody's got to make that transition at some point when you're playing quarterback, right? If you have the type of skill set that Patrick Mahomes does, you're not going to be able, like you said, run around, make magic happen in the sense that we know he can. I think we saw a little bit of that step in that direction last year, right? We talked about it a bunch of weeks where he was, becoming surgical in the pocket, where we just went, man, it's just one good decision, one pinpoint perfect throw after another. And I think he will continue to, I asked him in the interview, I don't want to give it all away, But he talks about that, and he's always conscious of what he didn't do well, what he needs to be better with, and where he needs to go to kind of up his game. And that's what's refreshing about Patrick Mahomes. It's what's refreshing about the Chiefs in general, right? There's a little bit of a looseness to their little mini dynasty that I think we both like, where it's not, the Patriots and we're ultra detailed and we found a player under a rock here somewhere and scouting and all this other stuff. And he's different than I think our at least prototype of our quarterback, where we've had, Brady and Manning, of course, where they were robots, right? Everybody in the right spot. I'm prepared. I know every check in the world, all that. And this one feels a little bit more free and freewheeling. But I know it's a lot of work, and he's putting in the work, but it just has that feel with the Chiefs.
And you know what? This isn't on the rundown. I just made sure that it's not something we're going to be talking about later. But I can't help but think about how lucky he was that, number one, he wasn't pegged as the top prospect entering the draft.
Sure.
And number two, the Chiefs fell in love with him, kept their mouths shut, and went up to get him because he's benefited from being in a top shelf organization with great coaching, great personnel acquisition, great support, great everything. And that's not how it usually works in the draft. And I thought of Caleb Williams as we're talking about where Patrick Mahomes is, right? Well, yeah. Well, and he isn't there yet, but you can see that Caleb Williams and his father Carl are moving down that path of realizing, you know what? Yeah, my easy option is I don't want to play for the Cardinals. I'll just stay in school for a year. But there's going to be another Cardinals the year after. You can't get away from the fact that the worst team in football is going to have dibs on you. Your play is to say, I'm coming, but not for you. I'm playing, but not for you. I'll enter the draft, but don't try to pick me because I'm not signing the contract. I feel like he's moving toward that because that's the only way you can get yourself into a spot that Patrick Mahomes is in. This is not intended to fire strays at the Browns. But I don't think Patrick Mahomes is what he is today if the Browns had drafted him in 2017. They wouldn't have had the support, the coaching, the consistency, the continuity so that he could develop and flourish the way he needed to. He has it here in Kansas City.
Listen, the stars aligned. I'm not going to argue there with that. Now, I think the player was going to pop up on our screen no matter what, no matter where he went. But
it might have been all over the place, right? Throwing
right.
interceptions, no rhyme or reason, can't harness him in.
I hear you.
Wants to use that arm and throw it 90 yards every play.
Agreed.
Coach can't talk to him.
Andy Reid was the perfect guy.
You need
for
an
him.
Andy Reid who can tell him, this is how it's going to be, Patrick. When it gets a little bit tense, this is how it's going to be.
Sure.
And he may not have listened to Freddie Kitchens or whoever.
No, listen, I've seen what you wrote about Caleb Williams. I get it. I get your thought. I know Arizona right now, they're in a spot of, it seems like which direction are they going? What are they doing there? I understand that too. But I also look at the flip side of that a little bit too, right? And we had those same thoughts. And this is where, players are different because they feel like they can change the culture. We didn't think Kansas City was that cool until Mahomes got here, right? I mean, I know it had some history. It did have Andy Reid, right? I know it's not.
They were a perennial playoff team.
I know it wasn't quite. I'm just talking about the pantheon. It wasn't like, oh, this franchise. They're just like, yeah, go ahead.
Here's what they were.
Go ahead.
They were the Vikings. Not even the Vikings. Not even the Vikings. They were better than the Vikings, but they had a quarterback who was taking them as far as he could.
Right.
And he wasn't able to punch through to the next level. And they were aware of that. And it was no hard feelings. Alex, we love you. You can make us relevant. You can make us competitors. You can make us contenders. You can't make us champions.
Sure.
And that's what some of these teams are going through now. And I think the Vikings are wrestling with that. It's why Kirk Cousins doesn't have a contract beyond this year. They want to go get their Mahomes, their Burrow. Not like you can just, pick up an app and say, how long until they show up with him.
Right.
But that's why the Chiefs did it. They were relevant. They weren't a bad team. They were picking in the 20s for a reason.
Yeah, they're 27, I believe.
They had to go all the way up to 10.
Right.
So I thought of that, and I apologize for taking us off path a little bit, but we need to remember, for as much as we praise Patrick Mahomes, he got lucky to be in Kansas City. He got lucky to be with Andy Reid, and he got lucky to be with a team that allows him to get the most out of his talents.
Sure.
I think there are plenty of quarterbacks out there who are not in a position where they can get the most out of their talents. Patrick Mahomes is.
Yeah, I hear you there. Now, I mean, as it pertains to Caleb Williams and where you went with that, we'll see. Now, you know that a lot of these quarterbacks have great confidence in themselves that they can turn around an organization with their skill on the field, their willpower off the field, like we saw Joe Burrow do with the Bengals,
Yes.
right? You know, we can go through, hey, Peyton Manning and the Colts, right? That was like, oh, the Colts. Oh, God, Peyton Manning's going to the Colts. And, of course, they became one of the coolest things in football. It is possible. But I hear you. It's on the radar.
I thought of
and I
that
got you.
because
All right.
it's the planets lining up, I think, as you said, just the right way,
Yeah.
just perfectly. But an incredibly great player, a guy who hasn't changed. And maybe that's one of the reasons he hasn't changed. Maybe at some level he knows that it really isn't and hasn't been all me. That there are others that are factors here, and I could have ended up.
I think he's totally
I could have
aware
ended
of
up
that.
in Cleveland, all due respect. I could have ended up in one of these other places where I wouldn't have been able to have my career develop the way it did. I mean, look, the guy wasn't regarded as the top prospect for a reason. Nobody knew what to make of him coming out of Texas Tech.
Right.
And it's not like he didn't have a coach who didn't eventually coach in the NFL in Cliff Kingsbury.
Right.
So it's great to see what's happened. And, you know, if you're a fan of the Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders, our condolences. It's going to be a long time that you're going to have to deal with this every year. Not that they're going to win it every year, but they're going to be in the mix every year. It really is astounding to think 5 straight AFC Championship games at home. He's never played a playoff game away from Arrowhead Stadium. And when you consider that, it's kind of disappointing they've only won 2.
Well,
when you kind of have things, it shows you how hard it is to
exactly,
win one.
right.
But it's like, you know, 40% when you have everything lined up your way.
Yeah, right.
They've been to 3, they've won 2,
Yeah.
and the 2 they won,
Yeah,
grab it out of the
skin to their
hat.
teeth,
Unbelievable.
right. Sure.
It really is a great story
No,
when you
it
think
is,
about it.
but
And there's still a lot of chapters
They
left.
had to dethrone the greatest dynasty we've seen in the history of the sport with the Patriots and lost the championship game to them, right? Yeah, the Joe Burrow loss, certainly. Played Tom Brady in the Bucs, which was, you know, a really well put together team for that little 2-3 year run
that
right
toe-
there.
that toe was the
and that toe
difference
was
that
an
day.
issue there, right? But I do think he is totally aware of all the things you said. I think that's the advantage he has from growing up in a sports house, where, you know, he sees his dad playing professional sports and he realizes, wait, it's more than just about my dad. It's the team. He got to be around that. And that comes off even in the interview too, Mike. I'm not trying to pat myself in the back, but he talks about that, the support he has. And I think with every great career, you know, the stars align in a way, somehow, some way, where we didn't envision it, and we're getting to watch this happen right in front of us right now. But I also think that's part of the reason he's willing to take a little less money, because of the point you said.
Or a lot.
Or a lot, right. It's becoming a lot. It was a little at first, now it's becoming
That's
a lot.
And it's going to be even more when Joe Burrow signs his contract at some point in the next few days, because I feel like it's moving in that direction. Unless the Bengals completely screw this up, Joe Burrow will have his contract before Sunday, and it will make the gap between him and Mahomes at 45, and currently Justin Herbert at 52.5, and Burrow goes to 53, 54, 55, wherever.
right.
At some point, that's going to be adjusted. And I was under the impression back in February that this was going to happen before the season begins. It's still not off the table, but it's kind of dicey right now. We're going to talk about Chris Jones.
It
complicates things.
Right, sure.
Having a guy who's not happy and not here, and I don't think they ever expected that would happen. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.